Hello there! I would like to make a point about Half-Life lore. To be specific, a point about the destruction of the Black Mesa research facility with a nuclear bomb. Back in 2016 I made a video about the fan-made Half-Life game that you can buy on Steam. And no, I'm not talking about Hunt Down the Freeman. This isn't anywhere near as bad as that train wreck. I am talking about Prospect. I was pretty harsh in my criticism. Contrasting that to Hunt Down the Freeman and seeing how that also came out on Steam, my criticism was too harsh back then compared to Hunt Down the Freeman. Anyways, the game has a teleportation sequence, where you get teleported to random locations before you arrive at your destination. By the way, during the teleportation you are ported to some cool place, presumably in Russia, to a church, to some places from Half-Life 2, and in front of a train. And since some of these locations looked a bit bland or random, I suggested something meaningful and interesting, like the ruins of Black Mesa. The video is a few years old by now, yet I still get comments telling me that Black Mesa was destroyed with a nuclear bomb, and that there are no ruins left, and that I'm an idiot, and that I shouldn't criticize things because I couldn't do any better. Yeah, that's top level argumentation. YouTube man bad, because he not video game developer. Brilliant. So here's my point. The nuke we see in the end of Half-Life Opposing Force could not wipe out the entire Black Mesa research facility. It could definitely render the whole facility inoperable and or inhabitable for a long time, but when has radiation ever bothered anyone in the Half-Life universe, especially someone with an HEV suit? Let us consider where the nuke is being detonated. In an underground car park of Black Mesa. And where is this car park located? Largely underground. Most laboratories, it seems, are in fact buried deep into the rock, and these laboratories are for the most part built out of sturdy reinforced concrete. The effects that this bomb would have are limited, nonetheless devastating, of course. The mental images most people have of the destruction brought on by a nuclear device are informed by images of the bombed cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These cities were indeed almost completely vanquished. On closer inspection we will notice that the majority of the city was made up of buildings in a traditional Japanese style, so very light construction, meaning wood for the majority of the buildings. And that means that not only the blast of the nuclear explosion would bring the destruction, but also fires afterwards. And the bomb was detonated above ground for maximum devastation. Upon further inspection we also noticed that buildings made out of stronger materials, such as stone and concrete, were still standing, with varying degrees of destruction, of course depending on the location of the building in relation to the nuclear explosion. These bridges and even several lampposts survived, even though they were very close to the explosion.
This barren area, 3/10 of a mile from 0 point, once contained the main Japanese military headquarters. The barracks were utterly destroyed. Most of the military personnel of approximately 20,000 were wiped out. The distorted steel framework is all that remains of a building which stood 4/10 of a mile from 0 point. Whereas this reinforced concrete building of the Chikogi Electric Company, 1/2 mile from 0 point, withstood the blast much better.
If we were to bury the nuclear bomb, as it was the case with the Black Mesa research facility, the destructive effects would have been massively channeled, most likely upwards, as that would be the path of least resistance. Several tests of a similar kind were conducted in the United States to test the viability of nuclear bombs as an aid in excavating, for example, canals. An insane idea from today's perspective, I know. Just the idea of excavating a canal with nuclear bombs seems crazy today.
The basic objective of Sedan was to determine the cratering effects of a deeply buried, high-yield nuclear explosion. Previous experience with 1 kiloton and smaller explosives has shown that as a nuclear explosion is buried deeper and deeper, crater size steadily increases until a depth of burst is reached, for which crater dimensions are maximum. Below this depth, crater size decreases.
The underground explosion you are seeing right here is from the Sedan project, a 100 kiloton nuclear device. In comparison, the Hiroshima bomb had an explosive power of an equivalent of 13 kilotons of TNT. A vast difference, 100 versus 13. Now imagine a 13 kiloton bomb in an underground explosion. It would be significantly smaller. The explosion you just saw took place roughly 200 meters or 650 feet underground. I doubt that the Black Mesa car park was that deep underground. Therefore, the bomb's force would have largely escaped upwards, limiting the effect on the Black Mesa research facility by a lot. Meaning the crater would have been significantly smaller, so less material would have been moved, so the prospect of excavating the entire research facility would have been pretty small. Of course, the facility would have experienced a significant earthquake and would have probably been rendered inoperable. But I never talked about conducting experiments there, I was merely talking about visiting the ruins. And considering the test footage we've seen by now, if you're not directly next to the explosion, there would still be ruins left. And the Black Mesa research facility is pretty big. So yeah, there would definitely been places that were relatively intact. Unless, of course, you would have had several bombs, but in Half-Life we only see a single one. This nuclear bomb could of course set off a chain reaction. I mean, there are a lot of flammable materials in the facility, but not every hallway, not every room, not every laboratory was stacked to the brim with explosive or flammable material. So yeah, there would have definitely been ruins. Some people seem to think that a nuclear bomb would leave nothing behind and just leave a void. That's pretty ridiculous. Just like people thinking a nuclear power plant could explode like a nuclear bomb would. Do you agree or disagree with me? Tell me in the comment section down below. Maybe you can prove me wrong. If so, I would gladly read it. So, that's it for today. I know this topic is largely irrelevant, but I found it kind of interesting to explore the ideas of Half-Life lore. Special thanks to all the supporters on Patreon, who of course got to see this video first. You guys are really helping out here. Thank you very much. So, see you guys next time. Until then, have a nice day and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.